Hello and welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
This is a new
everybody.
podcast.
It might have been like demon possessed. It was a fairly large, mutated looking chicken.
We were born in the north, but we grew up in the south.
We learned all of our words from Pennsylvania.
And people are, that's toboggan. That little toboggan
Not
there.
a toboggan. Toboggan is a sled. Okay.
0.3 inches, baby.
Dude, I can't take it. Welcome back to this
Yep.
week's episode. We're very glad you're here.
Nobody can hear you with that on. Take it out. Yeah.
We're really glad you're here. This is episode 122.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy, though?
Yeah. I know it hasn't happened as of this recording, but this has happened as people are watching this.
What's happened?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Last week we talked about things we were thankful for. If you haven't done that, give it a shot before the end of the year. It's really good to do.
Yeah.
It's good to be thankful. It's a good time, actually, to reflect.
Yeah.
And also go listen to our last week's episode if you haven't.
I feel like Thanksgiving, a lot of people just skim over it, but take the time to be thankful. I mean, truly be thankful.
Yeah. And also just to acknowledge that there was good things that happened this past year for most people. There was good things. And this year is really hard to, a lot of people are like, oh, nothing but bad.
Yeah.
You know, they just want to get past 2020, but
This year has been good for me.
2020 is not a year to throw away.
Yeah, there's been some downs, ups, spin arounds, but
Spin arounds.
but most of all,
A lot of good stuff, though.
I think it's a growth year. So it's a good year.
Yes, for sure. You watched any good movies lately? Yes? No?
I mean, I've watched some, but I don't want to talk about them on the podcast.
Why? Because they're no good?
Some Jonah Hill movies.
Oh, yeah, they're just comedy movies.
Yeah.
Just funny. Yeah, I mean, I've been watching The Mandalorian, been keeping up with that. I don't know.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Mandalorian's got me a little bit nostalgia.
Mando.
I find myself watching YouTube videos about Star Wars theories and stuff, even though I don't normally do that. But Mandalorian's done a few things really well.
Yeah.
It's got me in the mood. That's kind of what I've been watching, though.
I watched a couple episodes of The Mandalorian in preparation for the Star Wars episode, but for some reason, I need to go back and watch the first season because I realized watching that there was a couple episodes I missed on the first season, and I need to go back and just kind of binge it all at once.
Yeah.
Which, that's something, maybe I should, you guys have
You can
Disney
skip
Plus?
the episode with Bill Burr. That one wasn't really pertinent. But yeah, the you should definitely watch it. If you want, we could watch it tonight after this episode if you want. If you want to. We could watch some tonight after.
Like the first season?
No.
Is that what you want? Because that's what I want. I need to go back and watch it because I missed some of the
missed
story.
too much. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, you can come over and we'll watch it sometime.
Yeah.
But anyways, could I throw something out there? It's not really film news related, but it's something that I've decided to do, and it's in regarding to health and in regarding to this winter, cold, dry COVID season that's coming up.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan always says this, so I figured, hey, maybe people that listen to us could choose to do this as well.
Yeah.
I went and got myself at Walgreens. They had a buy one, get one free. Some great vitamins, vitamin C and vitamin D. And just want to throw that out there real quick. Because, I mean, it's going to be...
Some greens.
Yeah, it's going to be a season of sickness, whether it's COVID or it's the flu or it's the cold. And we got to build our immune systems because our immune systems, we're not out in the sun enough. We're not getting our vitamins.
What the best thing for me, and I say this very loosely, I did it at one point religiously.
Okay.
I stopped doing it and realized that when I am doing it strict and religiously, I'm completely well. I never get any sniffles. I never get anything. And I have perfect health. And this is the ultimate thing that's going to keep you healthy.
What is it?
What do you think it is?
Exercise?
No.
Eat.
Drinking a gallon of water every day. If you, and I'm dead serious about this,
not all at once, because
there was
that could harm you.
No. but drinking a gallon of water
throughout the day. You're going to pee a lot.
Yes, you will pee a lot, and not really having any other sugary liquids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would drink like a coffee in the morning. This is usually what I do. I have one coffee in the morning, and that kind of gives me enough awake.
Caffeine.
And gives me a little bit of something that's not water.
Also, coffee's really good for your liver. Like, it cleans it out a lot. Like that and citrusy foods like oranges. And this is not a health and wellness podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yes, a gallon of water. I would like to try to start doing that. I need to carry a gallon around with me though.
Yeah.
Or at least like half a gallon bottle so that I know I have to drink 2 of those.
Yeah, that's definitely you do pee a lot, but that definitely will help with your health. I know I did that for like 6 months to a year straight.
Yeah, it was really good.
And I didn't feel bad at all during that time.
Really?
I stopped because it just becomes a hassle with work and peeing too much. And
you have to constantly be like, all right, drink water.
Yeah.
Do a few things, drink water. You know, to down a gallon, that's a good amount. I'm going to do it though. Between a gallon of water, daily vitamin C vitamin and vitamin D vitamin. Go to Walgreens. Actually, they might, check CVS, check out Walgreens. They have really good vitamin options. I got both 100 tablets of both for like $13. Like, it was great.
Yeah.
So go get yourself some vitamins and drink a gallon of water, because we want everyone to be healthy. And we thought I just kind of wanted to throw that out at the beginning, because
yeah,
it's good.
Something else I want to start doing. I know.
Yeah.
We were talking about fitness, and Sober October's done, but I had my break not doing any exercise after Sober October. Now I'm getting back into it. I really want to, a couple times a week, find somewhere, maybe here in Virginia, because this place is because we're close to the beach. There's a lot of like hippie-ish vibes close to the beach more. I want to find a good place where, and even if it's hippie, I would still want to go, like a good yoga place. That's not too expensive. I can go take a couple classes a week and just do it for fun.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
I've thought about the idea of doing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but the classes is like, it can be around like $150 to $200 a month for only like 4 classes, 1 a week. And so I don't know. That's quite a bit of money for where I'm at right now. But yeah, I like the idea about yoga. You should do it.
Yeah.
Anything that's fun, that's physical is good. But so you haven't seen any good films recently besides Jonah Hill? You're not watching any good shows because you're not much of a show dude.
Right now, no. I haven't been watching a lot.
Let me ask you this. Are they still selling DVDs at all? Like anybody?
A little bit.
Do people still sell DVDs like at Walmart or Target or someplace?
Yeah.
Because I heard on a YouTube video that they're saying DVDs are pretty much done.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
Well, they're pretty much done, but they're still selling them. Like, they're still making them and selling them.
Yeah.
They're still making a bunch of Blu-rays. They always have the hard
how
copies.
Many they are actually copying and producing.
And I wonder how many people use them.
I've kind of stopped buying them.
Yeah, and you are a big collector. Do you think people for a while bought them and then just did the digital download and just had it, and now the only reason to buy it is for I guess nostalgia and to get that digital download probably? Yeah. Because because you can get it on all your devices and everything. I don't know. I just thought of it. I was like, it threw me off guard because I was thinking, I thought they still make DVDs. I didn't think they were just completely done.
Yeah. They do, but I think it's pretty much done.
Gotcha.
That and theaters, I think, are pretty much done.
So you're still on this theaters are done kind of mindset.
I'm sad, but yes. I think theaters
have
officially technically opened up a little bit since COVID, but I mean, we'll see. I think they might go back down. They might shut back down.
And this is the theater season. I mean, going to the movies here right before Christmas, this is like when all of the big blockbusters came out. This is like when everything was taking place that everyone was going. Families in town, you go see a movie together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, I really doubt right before Christmas many theaters are going to be open.
No, it's kind of sad. What movie was it? Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah. They still haven't released
Still
that.
haven't released it. It's supposed to come out 4th of July. Have not come out yet. They pushed it back till December, sometime the beginning of December.
Uh-huh.
I don't know
Still
if it's
not
coming out.
Haven't heard anything.
We'll see. Yeah.
Anywho, we have a topic for you guys that we're going to dive into. This is definitely in the geek genre.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to break some stuff down, give some ideas and thoughts about it, and also analyze the creator of this specific thing. Joshua?
Yeah.
Tell us what it is.
We are talking about... What's the guy's name?
Jrr Tolkien.
Oh, no, I was going to throw a joke in there and I totally lost my joke.
We're talking about languages
Yes.
of Middle-earth, created by the wonderful and creative and brilliant Jrr Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about some comments that he's made about creating languages for his story of Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings. And also we're going to break down a little bit of how, well, to help you understand a little bit more. So you can go look on YouTube and look up how were Lord of the Rings characters' names, created.
Yeah.
And then when you hear people talk about it, you'll understand some of the terminology a little bit better based on what we tell you here. And at the very end, I am going to give you now this is a little bit of a
You're going to try to say something?
No, there's a tease that I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you the translation of Legless, his name,
Yeah.
according to what the exact translation was originally. Now, it's not a big deal. It's not crazy, but it is kind of humorous, so I thought I'd tease it at the beginning and then kind of end the episode giving you what what the translation of Legless's name is.
Yes.
I have a paper, by the way.
First off,
There's a lot of stuff to remember.
Yeah, first off, I think we should talk about why he wrote Lord of the Rings, because we talked about this on an episode before, I think, to where the purpose of writing Lord of the Rings was not to write the story Lord of the Rings. He didn't just come up with the idea. He created these languages, started off actually with Elvish, I think, and then he had the language of Elfish, and he wanted to create a back story for this language so that this language had purpose and it had a meaning behind it.
Yes. Essentially, he said that, the way he actually saw stories. So he was a linguist. He knew a lot of stuff about language. It was something that he was interested in. He always kind of made fun of himself, saying like, oh, this is my silly hobby, or this is like my, in his fancy English words, like his geeky obsession. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something I wanted to get into before we started just getting into the whole thing was why, like, because when you think of language, and this is getting deep into it, what's the purpose of language?
To communicate.
To communicate.
Yeah.
So there's a couple reasons kind of how you communicate, like, especially in English, we have communicating very basic. So like someone who doesn't know English, they can kind of communicate, be like, bathroom, food, type of thing. And we know what they're saying. We can kind of communicate a little bit. But then there's also us just having a conversation and trying to get deep meaning out of something. And then there's also in English, and this is a big thing, I don't know, compared to other cultures, it's hard to kind of translate. There's slang words.
Yes.
Slang when it comes to like English, like
throwing
shade. Someone who doesn't know English, probably it's hard for them to comprehend things like throwing shade, because shade is not, it has nothing to do with shade like being shaded.
Yes.
They hear the word shade and they're like, wait, shade? What does that mean? So when you think about languages and creating languages, you have to think about all that type of stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I will say, I need to preface this. I don't know if you knew this. Tell me if you did or not. Did you know, so in relation to Star Trek, people go out and say, I can speak Klingon. Did you know that all of the languages J.R.R. Tolkien created are not complete enough to speak. And also,
Well,
no, this is a quote by him.
yeah.
And it is true by cross-referencing. There's not enough to it. It's too complex. He said in an interview where he said, I don't want people to create this cult or this little club where you go out and have coffee and talk to your friends in Elvish or Dwarvish. He said, first of all, that's not the thing I'm intending. This is to reinforce this story. And then also, he said, and it's too complicated. I'm not even anywhere close to completing a language.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
he didn't view it as highly as we might view it today.
Yeah.
But he is also probably a little, being humble,
Yes, I know what you're saying, but there's also an aspect to it, and this is part of his language, is when you think of Lord of the Rings, Elfish, for example, or dwarves. Let's talk about dwarves. The story of dwarves, there's a bunch of different dwarves. When you think of the book The Hobbit, you have like the dwarves from the different types of mountains. There's different dialects of dwarves.
Yes.
They're all dwarves, but they all have a different dialect. So there's a different thing. It's kind of like when you think of Spanish. There's a lot of Spanish-speaking people out there, but they're a little bit different. It's tweaked a little bit to where it's a different dialect. And he created the languages for that because he wanted to create the story. So if you look into like what we would just think of as Elvish, there's actually 15 different versions of the language Elvish.
Well, there's two main ones.
Yeah, there's probably two main ones, which you probably...
I can break all that down, so tell me when you want me to do that.
Well,
Or are you going to take it bit by bit?
I mean, you can break it down just so people understand, because I know you did research for this episode, but I kind of just want to just talk about it in general, and we can loosely talk about it after you explain it.
Okay.
So go ahead and explain it.
So just a quick shout out to a individual called Lindsay Ellis. She did a video on the YouTube channel called Storied, and she is the one I got a lot of information from. So I figured if we're going to comment and talk about this and the ideas behind it, I might as well learn as much as I can. Found her, watched her stuff, and she broke it down really nicely. So just wanted to shout that out. So some of the things I might say here, if you went and saw her video, you might notice I am repeating, so I don't want it to sound like I just know all this by myself. So the first thing one of the first things I think in the books that is mentioned that's not an English word is Moria. So talking about the mines of Moria. And that is the first non-English word that's really brought up or that's mentioned. I don't exactly know if it's in the book or if it was like one of the first ones he was started with, but pretty much. So it's translated the same thing. It's Black Chasm, and in Dwarvish, it's called Khazad-dûm, right? So they call Moria Khazad-dûm. Moria is the Elvish. It is the Grey Elves, which is called Sindarin, which I will go into in a minute. So just for example, I thought that's an interesting fact to just throw it out there.
I think before you get in the second one, I just want to cut you off a second because I have a...
Okay.
The language of Elvish, I think was... I don't know if it's his main language, but I think that's the one that he loved the most, because that's the one that we hear when we think of Lord of the Rings languages. I mean, there's a lot, like Dwarvish, the Ents language, the Dwarfs. I know I already said that.
There are...
Orcs, there's so many different languages, but Elvish is the kind of the language that's really beautiful and people like to speak because it's the most common.
Well, it's kind of...
And
Elvish and Dwarvish are kind of at odds. They are kind of the two main... in Middle-earth, they're the two main languages that are used most commonly.
But did you know, and
besides
I didn't know this,
the English
I
language.
just found this out doing research for this episode.
J.R.R.
Tolkien, when he was writing the book, he was going to write it in all Elvish.
Was he really?
Yeah, not English. But because people wouldn't be able to understand it unless they knew the language, then he kind of ex-nayed the idea. He kind of got shot down.
Well, that was probably smart on his side, because I don't think many people would. But listen, so talking about English and not Elvish, he actually did preface what we call English as a different thing. Okay. So it's the same language, but he called it something different. The common tongue, they actually talk about this in the movies. They say the common tongue. It's the modern, current common language. We hear it as English, but he called it Westron. And the Old English, so there was another common tongue, but it was more an older version of what they spoke. It was called, by the way, I'm not going to be able to pronounce everything, but Rohirric. So that it comes from the Rohan land. Yeah. Yes. So that was kind of like the old, that was kind of like the Old English, what we would call Old English. He prefaced that. So they spoke this Westron, or this native or common tongue language, but they spoke it in more of like an old, more upscale way. But the common person spoke a language like the Hobbits, called Westron. Now, the Hobbits did have their own language, but we didn't ever see that in the movies. So we're just going to kind of move past that. We're going to talk about ones that are mostly used in the movies.
Yeah. I think, too, a lot of it was adapted into what we call English.
Yes. Am I spitting?
I kind of did.
Or is that you?
What we call English, just so people can understand the story more of.
But I think that's cool that he decided to preface and give it a different name.
Yeah.
And call it the common tongue. But it's also just English, but we can understand it clearly.
Yeah. I mean, well, as Americans, we think, oh, we speak English. That's the superior language. No, we just think that because we're from America.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there are other languages that come that are also English, but yeah, I mean,
us as Americans, we're very ignorant to language.
Yeah.
I mean, at least where we are here in the kind of the south area of that side of the United States.
Yeah.
South Carolina or Virginia.
Yeah.
area.
I thought it was interesting that he prefaced this, and also Bilbo wrote the book, There and Back Again, in
different language.
The Westron language.
Oh.
He was writing English words. They just had a very stylistic feel to it. But he was writing it in Western modern tongue language.
And I think,
which is just English.
I think I remember this. He did have some dwarf dialect in it because and this is something that we don't see as much in the stories.
There and Back Again was written very similarly to the way he wrote the books.
Yeah.
So they were in the books. If you read it, J.R.R. Tolkien would say, and they sang a song, and then he gives you 3 pages of all the lyrics to the song. You know what I mean? And so it was written in a similar way, except with other languages. So it would show you how the language looks, like on the One Ring. It showed you in the book the way it was written out.
Something that, and this is Peter Jackson's version of The Lord of the Rings, and Peter Jackson did great. I don't want to cut Peter Jackson down at all. But something that he took out of the film that we do not see.
You mean took out of the books?
No, he took out of the film. Was in the books.
Okay.
Bilbo, yes, he lived in the Shire, and yes, after his birthday, he kind of went off and lived with the elves. But during that time, and because he went on the story of The Hobbit and fell in love with the dwarfs and their kind, and who had a lot of friends around the dwarfs.
Yeah. Dwarf communities,
yeah. There was a lot more dwarves in the book, especially evolving his birthday at the beginning of the first movie.
Yeah,
there was no dwarves in the movie, but there was dwarves at his birthday.
Yeah, he had a lot of dwarf friends. Had a lot of good connections there. That is true.
And
he probably didn't include that because he knew so many people were going to come watch the movies who never read the books. They're going to see, it's already hard enough to be like, okay, who's this wizard? Why are they going to a little town that's really happy in grassland with small people with hair on their feet? There's so many questions that someone who hasn't read the books or doesn't understand the world would come into and be like, this is so confusing. All of a sudden you see dwarves there, and then you're like, oh, okay, dwarves is like neighbors to the Shire, and then you realize, no, dwarves are proud people on the other side of the world, and they have this whole backstory, and it's like, well, then why were they at the Shire? And then you'd be like, well, Bilbo had this backstory where they went and hunted a dragon to steal the gold to take everything. I mean, there's too much there, you know? So
that is true. I think it would have been cool if, it would have been cool.
What?
If at the birthday party or something, they kind of just mentioned, like, I don't know, some of the food, or I don't know, like the ale or something was like dwarfish version. It's like, that's not a Shire.
They had a lot of moments where they pointed back to Bilbo's past that we hadn't seen on screen yet, They had a lot of moments of that.
I mean, I don't want to cut Peter Jackson down at all, because I think he had to make some creative choices when he had created films. I mean, the films are 3-4 hours long. He couldn't put everything in there, but so he did a good job.
Yeah.
But there was some of that aspect.
There's a lot of the books that aren't in the movies.
Yeah.
They're not like The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games was pretty spot on.
Have you, and I know you know the story and you've read here and there, I know for sure, but have you sat down and read the whole Hobbit?
You keep
and
asking
Lord of the
me.
Rings?
I've read the whole Hobbit. I read half of the first,
okay,
The Fellowship, and then I only read on the Two Towers and on Return of the King, I only read Frodo, Sam, and Gollum's part, which is literally half the book.
You should go back and read it. It's really good.
Yeah, I know.
I've read all of them.
But even in the little bit of me incompletely reading it, I know that there's so much missing from the films.
Okay, I want to get back into languages. Before we do that, though, I want to kind of throw you under the bus for a second.
No, don't do that.
We did not have a copy of the first Lord of the Rings book. So you're like, our friend who you graduated with in high school, Will Epps, you're like, hey, can I borrow your copy of Lord of the Rings? He's
don't
like,
do
okay,
this.
Give it back when you finish it. Guess what? You never gave it back. You moved to Columbia. I still have it today.
You still have Will Epps' book? Is it with you?
Yeah. When I saw him, I didn't see him for a while because you graduated with him. We moved away. Then a couple years later, we started going to the same church, and we were kind of in the same college and career group. And I was like, something Lord of the Rings came up, and I was like, oh, by the way, I have your book. And he's like, I know, your brother took it from me. I still remember this. And then
I didn't know I took it from him and didn't give it back.
And I was like, I can give it back to you. And then I just never did. So throw me under the bus.
Yeah, now you're under the bus, sir. You are, not me.
Will Epps, if you ever watch this, which you might not, probably not, if you want your book, you have to come to Virginia to get it.
Yeah, and you have to ask Joshua, because I don't have it anymore. I was just the original sinner. Joshua is the current thief.
You never finished the book. I got it, and then I read the whole thing.
Okay.
So it was a good book to read, and I would read it again.
Yes. All right. So we talked a little bit about the Moria origins, the translation. We talked a little bit about the common tongue, Westron and Rohirric. I did want to mention, going back to the incomplete languages of this, do you know that the movies did not elaborate on everything? They had a linguist come in and create a lot of the stuff to fill in the gaps for the movies.
I did not know that.
The guy's name was David Salo, was the linguist on the movies. He came in because the languages were incomplete. You can't have a conversation in these languages. There's more like, a lot of it was done, but for a language, it was incomplete. And so David Salo studied the languages. He filled in the gaps where he thought it was a good creative choice, and they created these conversations in these other languages, but not all of it was approved by J.R.R. Tolkien.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yes. So, and like I said, I watched an interview where J.R.R. Tolkien said, they're not complete. Yeah. They never will be. It's too much. Too much work needs to be done.
We can get into more before that, but did you know J.R. Tolkien, I'm not even talking about creating languages, he spoke 35 different languages outside of the Lord of the Rings.
No, I didn't know that.
He knew a lot of languages, my guy.
Well, I think languages was his obsession.
It was.
More than, he was creative, but no, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't seen the movie Tolkien.
Tolkien. a lot of people say it's not completely accurate. They left a lot out, and they should have put more in, but it's just not pleasing the nerds. The nerds are never going to be happy.
Geeks, dog. Get the terms right.
Nerds. They're a bunch of nerds. No, geeks are people who take the movie and they're like, this is cool. I'm going to study it more. The version I said are just people who are angry.
The nerds are like content Nazis.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people said they didn't like it because there was a lot of stuff that was not in there, but I really liked the movie. It was a good movie.
Gotcha.
In it, he used this word "celador" to describe just a beautiful language. I like that. There's also a scene in that film, and we should watch it, where he gets really drunk, and he's at his college because he got kicked out of school or he like flunked out for his major that he did before he went into to become a linguist. And he's just completely drunk out in the courtyard. It's like midnight, and he's speaking Elvish, and it's so beautiful. He's just out under the stars speaking Elvish, and people are opening up their windows. They're like cussing at him and stuff. Go to bed, it's so late. It's such a beautiful scene.
Yeah, you need to go on YouTube and listen to recordings of the real Jrr Tolkien speaking Elvish.
Dude.
He does it great. It's crazy. Let me get to, speaking of Elvish, the language. I'm going to do a quick breakdown for you. So there are a lot of accents and dialects.
Keep talking. I'm going to be typing on my phone for a second.
But okay, so I'm going to break this down. Think of our language, Latin, right? From Latin, which was a language and is a language, originated other languages. Languages like English, Spanish, German, Persian, etc. Hindi, I think, is one. Hindi's a language, right? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Irish. So these are languages that originated out of Latin. So,
yeah,
with Elvish tongue, it is the same thing. The reason why is because he wanted it to feel like a language that's been lived in for generations.
Yeah, like I said, there was like 15 different versions
but
of the language.
But you're saying there's dialects almost. Yeah. But these are actually two separate languages that fall under the Elvish category.
Okay.
The Latin, the original, is something called Quendian. Now, again, I'm not going to pronounce everything correctly, but Quendian, it's pretty close. Then, from that branched two elf languages. One is made for the High Elves, so the ones that were, you know how in the movies they talk about, across the sea and then they came to Middle Earth?
Oh, yeah,
Those elves are considered High Elves. There's other elves like Gray Elves, so people like Legless and his father, and the ones that live at Rivendell,
born in Middle Earth.
Yes, that essentially have been cultivated and grown. They're called Gray Elves. So, the most common elf tongue that they speak mostly in the films is called Sindarin, which is a branch of Quendarin.
Yeah.
And then and that's what most elves speak, especially the Gray Elves. Then there's also, this one's hard for me to do because I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, but Quenya.
Okay.
Quenya. That is the language that is unique to the High Elves that they do speak sometimes in the films, like at the end when Aragorn is singing that song after he's been crowned king.
Yeah.
That one. That is in High Elvish, which is Quenya language.
This is something that's in the extended version of the Fellowship, the first movie, when this is right before Frodo gets stabbed by the Black Rider. It kind of shows them they're in a swampy area, and he's Aragorn Strider at this point, because they only know him as Strider, is singing, and Frodo kind of references, he's like, who's the woman you speak of? And he's talking about the lady who was loved, but he had to let go because she was loved by the mortal.
Mm-hmm. But he's probably talking in the Grey Elves Sindarin dialect.
Yeah.
The reason for that is that's the most common. The elves, the Hobbits were actually knew a little bit of that Elvish tongue.
Yeah.
But whenever people talk about like, the High Elves or the language they're speaking,
Who was
like not Mithrandian, that's great. That's Gandalf.
Mm-hmm.
The white elf, the lady elf, what's her name?
Galadriel.
Yeah. She speaks in High Elf. Quenya, I believe is how you pronounce it. Maybe Quenya?
Not Legless, Aragorn.
Mm-hmm.
I want to really quickly just kind of give a brief story who Aragorn is, because we're talking about Aragorn and people might not know because he as well. We
This
think
is
of it as like a
if they're this
the
deep
king.
in, I think they're fans of.
Okay. Just really quickly though,
Lord of the Rings.
his mom was elf,
Yeah,
and his dad was not.
yeah.
He was the mortal king, or the heir to the throne.
Gondor.
Yes, that's how he became the king at the end of the movies, because his father, but he had a elf mother, which made him not immortal, but
He lived
really
a long time.
old. In the movies, Aragorn's supposed to be like
Old guy.
80 years old.
80 years old, and he looks like probably he's 35, maybe
Yeah.
40 at the most. So he's gonna live a long time. So that's a basic breakdown of the elf language from a high point of view. Is you got Quendian, and then you got Quenya and Sindarin. And Sindarin is the one we hear most of the time in the movies when elves are speaking, because it's the common tongue of elf language.
Mhm.
What are you smiling at? You look
I
like
don't
you're
know.
about to laugh.
I'm just thinking we're a bunch of nerds doing this podcast.
It's good though. It's
Yeah,
good.
It's beautiful.
We're breaking it down. All of this to say, which we're going to get to later, is the creativity and the mindset and the beauty in what Jrr Tolkien did. And we're
Yeah.
going to give our thoughts on it. But I have to get through all this information. This one is fascinating to me. Wait.
Okay. Keep spitting out some stuff, my guy.
All right. The language that Sauron spoke.
Oh, yeah.
No one spoke that language hardly at all, except ancient beings, or understood it except for ancient beings like, guess who? Gandalf.
Do you know the backstory briefly to give how, because we already said most elves, yes, there were some born in Middle-earth, but they descended from the elves who came across the ocean.
Yes, but I don't.
Do you not want to
That
get
has to
into
be
that?
a different episode.
Okay, well, I'm just saying there's languages and the
Elves
dialect.
Elves came to Middle Earth.
Yeah, that's how
They didn't
there's
originate
different
in
dialects,
yeah.
and this is especially the wizards and their colors and all this stuff that ties in with all of why they're in Middle Earth and how they got there too. So I'm just saying this involves their language a little bit.
We can't break down all of Lord of the Rings. I would say we stay away from there. We just talk about this for now,
Okay.
because we can break down Lord of the Rings in many episodes.
Yeah.
But let me get back to this. So Sauron, he created a language only for himself.
Okay.
It resembles the way when you write it out, it resembles Elvish. But there are elements that aren't really Elvish, and it doesn't speak like Elvish either.
Is it more of
the One
like
Ring?
a darker,
The One Ring had his language, so that's when
like a what do they call it? Like a language of, I can't even think. Gandalf says, "I will not speak it." That's
yes, but that's
this
why when
language.
Frodo's over there looking at it at the beginning, and he's like, "It's some form of Elvish. I can't read it." And then Gandalf's like,
oh yeah, more
"There
of
are few who can." It's because it looks like Elvish. It's kind of like Elvish, but it's not. It is called Black Speech. That is the official name of that language. It is an evil language created by Sauron himself in order to speak to his followers, to himself, for himself. It originated with him. There's no history behind it except Sauron himself. That's a really cool one.
Yeah.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it, but it's true. It's what it is. And then we get to Dwarvish, which the correct name is Khazad-dû. That is the terminology. So we're going to call it Dwarvish.
Hold up.
Same way
Let's
we call it Elvish. All right, listen
think
to
of
this.
that. Before we go on, I want to meditate on that small thing. Say that again.
Khazad-dû.
Khazad-dû. How do you think he came up with Khazad-dû? I don't want to get too much of this, but that word sticks out.
I don't know.
Me.
He probably pronounced it differently. Cause I do. I don't know.
Cause I do. Yeah.
Cause I do.
It's so interesting because, and like I referenced earlier, in the film he said cellar door. It's a cellar door.
Yeah.
Oh, to us that's weird. It's a cellar door, but like he said,
A lot of these you probably
it's just
can't.
how you pronounce things out of your mouth, and it becomes language. And we put a meaning behind it that is.
But he also would take like 3 words or phrases and combine them.
Yeah.
You know? So, and not just like words.
I know
what you're saying.
He liked the way our mouths made a sound to create the word door.
Mm-hmm.
He liked that word. We put meaning behind it because we think of a thing that swings open and shut, and we enter and close with it. So we say door. That's what we think of. But if there was no meaning behind it, just someone said door,
all of a sudden it's empty.
It's empty, but it's a beautiful noise that comes out of your mouth. Door.
Door.
Door is beautiful.
I suppose. Let me get back to this.
Yeah.
Khazad-dû. It is, when you say the term Elvish and Dwarvish, that would be like me saying we speak human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or we speak human American. That's like what you would say.
Yeah.
It's not correct. We say we speak English. So when we talk about people speaking Dwarvish, we should really say they're speaking Khazad-dû. Same with Elvish. We shouldn't say they speak Elvish. We should say they speak Sindarin. Make sense?
Yeah.
As we talked about on the Midnight Special, or was mentioned, Khazad-dû, or Dwarvish, whatever you want to refer to it as, originates from the languages of Arabic and Hebrew. Well, there are aspects. There's inspiration pulled from those. Yeah, and Jamark was right.
Yeah. What do you say?
There was certain writings and comments is made that in today's climate would be considered probably a little anti-Semitic about Jewish people in regards to about dwarves and Jewish people. Like, it was a joke on the Midnight Special, and then when I did research, it was a little tone deaf. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
well, there also wasn't cancel culture back then.
that's right. He could say what he wanted, and no one cared. There's also, do you know that dwarves have a secret language? Do you know how they have a secret language?
What is J.R.R. Tolkien? Is he Jewish?
I don't think so.
What is his background?
I don't know.
We need to look this up, because I bet this is why this kind of involves all of this. This background. We didn't even look this up.
What nationality was J.R.R. Tolkien?
Yeah.
Well, he's English. He's from England.
Yeah.
English writer. Nope, not Jewish.
Okay. That's what I was thinking, but maybe, okay, I guess that's not right.
Yeah. Okay, South Africa?
Yeah, South Africa. I mean, that's
where he's from?
Yeah, I mean, that's
then he died in England. Yep. Okay. Nope, not Jewish.
So, kind of South African, but English.
Okay, either way, do you know that dwarves have a secret language?
Mm-hmm.
It is called Kurth.
Did you know, and I don't know if you put this on your paper or not, you might have, you know, he created like a sign language, not even just speaking, version that the dwarfs have.
No, I didn't know that.
He created this because he said when they were in the mines working and mining for gold and stuff,
they had to be able to communicate from long distances.
And because they couldn't hear each other because it was very noisy in the mountains when they're drilling, banging, hammering and stuff like that. So they would have this kind of sign language that he created. So he didn't just create languages.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
He created sign languages.
Or at least one version of it.
Did he create it, or did they say they do it? because
I think he created it, or at least a portion of it.
I guess knowing him, he would have to create it.
Yeah.
But yes, there is a secret language that the dwarves have called Kurth. You see it in writings and stuff. Don't ever really hear them speak it. And it's a secret languages that most all dwarves probably know, but don't use it because it's secret. They want to keep it to themselves. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Well, dwarves are very. He created the dwarf group of people, or just race, as very secretive, or just they want to keep to themselves. I mean, they're kind of like the Hobbits a little bit, but they just want their own thing. I mean, like their gold, they were very selfish with their gold and with their resources. So,
okay. Another interesting fact. Do you remember the Ents?
Yeah.
Tree people?
Tree people, yeah.
Did you know theirs is one of the oldest languages in Middle-earth because they've been around the longest, and even the most smartest, even the high elves who know a lot, can't even learn Old Entish language. Now, they don't speak it in the films.
Do they, though?
Yeah, I think they don't speak it in the films. They don't.
Okay.
This is an older language. I'm pretty sure they don't. I'm trying to think. I don't think they did.
Okay.
But they said one of the biggest reasons why is because they alluded to it with a phrase that he says. They take a long time to say what they're saying, right? They talk very slowly, and it takes a long time to get there. Old Entish was like that, but it was really detailed, really descriptive, really slow, but also there's a lot packed into the language, just to say simple stuff. So it was hard to learn. Even the most smart people in Middle-earth couldn't learn it.
How long do you think a podcast, or a 15-minute podcast, would be in
Old Entish? It would probably be about
3 days.
4 or 5 hours.
Or like 3 days.
What should be a 15-minute podcast, yeah. I don't know. I think it would probably get boring to listen to.
Yeah.
But I mean, even think of the way they portrayed the speaking in the movies. He's like, I think the funniest thing about it is that he's breathing in and out as he's talking.
Yeah.
He's like, the trees are awakening. You know? He's like talking through his breathing in and out. Oh, the guy who played Gimli voiced him. Do you know that?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, it's a great voice. Once you learn that, though, it kind of sounds like Gimli's just talking funny. Okay. I think that's most of the stuff I've done except for the big teaser at the end, which I will leave till later. However, when we reflect on all of this, what about J.R.R. Tolkien stands out to you? Like,
he smokes a pipe.
Yes, he does. Well, that wasn't where I was going, but what do you think about his creativity? Because he always said he started from the languages and built a world around it.
Yeah. Well, for one, I think because of the time he lived in, I think it was a different form of art, especially when you talk about things like Entish or, I don't know, all these different languages that he wrote for the story, Lord of the Rings. He had time, and he created those because he fell in love with the story. He took the time to create this and put the energy and time into it.
Yes.
And in today's culture, I think when we think of art, yes, there's people that put time into it. I'm not demeaning all forms of art, but most of it, especially from YouTube, there's, quick out and start something new. We got to get this content out, create it. And that's even films today. I mean, 10 years ago, it took them like 5 years to create a film. Now it takes them a year, half a year, couple
6 months.
Yeah, and then they come up with it in a year.
Yeah. The thing is, everyone always says that J.R.R. Tolkien took his whole life to make this story.
That's
and
why
at the end of his life, he
Mhm.
was still saying, it's not done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the story's not done. The languages aren't finished. It's not complete.
Mm-hmm.
And he had spent his whole life doing it. So that brings me to this idea of, what do you think about true artists, or really good artists that last, that make a difference? Usually spend their whole life trying to tell. They'd usually tell multiple stories, but really tell one story. You know what I mean?
I think if you actually like get into their story, and it's beautiful to follow, but I think they are punished, like I said, by the time frame they're in.
Mm-hmm.
I think back then things were a little bit slower. Now we have social media, we have all this stuff, we want things now, so the time is different. It's hard to be that artist that takes the time to create something that's worth a lot. I mean, even today, if you create something like furniture that's wood, like piece of wood, we have things like
Can make 10 of these in a few hours.
Yeah, like IKEA. You go and buy IKEA furniture because it's cheap and it's like made fast. But someone who makes a table that it takes them a year to make a table, they're going to sell that table for a year's worth of wage because they put their year into it.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's going to pay that.
Very few will.
But that's a great...
But think about this. You only have to sell one.
But who are you going to sell it to?
You got to find them.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably somebody out there. I heard this one podcast recently.
I think
Erwin
we should
McManus.
spend our time investing in that type of art.
What?
Rather than quick art.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I heard this this pastor, Erwin McManus, on his podcast with his son. It's called Battle Ready. He's recently opening a clothing line. He's a pastor. He likes...
I don't know, you're picking stuff and I don't like it.
He likes fashion.
Okay.
He has a bunch of material that he spent a lot of money to buy that he's held on to for years. Material from World War II.
Okay.
He's creating pants, coats, very stylish clothing. He's making it himself, not by himself, but him and his team, making it himself, and they're selling it. He has pieces that are going for $5,000. Expensive pieces of clothing, but he has this branding that is past, present, and future, essentially, or preparing for the future. So it's not stuff that's like super ingrained in what's cool now, but it's taking old stuff that's been around for decades and then creating something that looks good now that you can use now, but it's also built to last far into the future, and you'll want to keep wearing it throughout your life because of the way it's designed, because of the way it's built, because of the way it feels.
Yeah.
You know?
So I heard someone talking about, and this is a guy, he made a video on YouTube that I saw about things that you should invest in when in your 20s. And one of them was, he said, a really nice, expensive watch. He said the reason for that is not to buy it for yourself and have that as value, but so that you can have a really good watch that will last and you can pass down to the generation after you. And then they can pass it down to their generation and generation.
Okay, well, we were talking about trinkets that Peter McKinnon is making. Do you think his trinkets have value, or what kind of trinkets like that do you think are worth investing in?
I think they have some value. I don't know if they're passed down to next generation value, but they are value. I mean, even he sells like pens. His pens are not pens you just pick up, use, throw away. Not the dollar store pens. They're pens you have, and you're like the big business guy that comes in a suit, a nice suit, like skinny tie, fitted type clothes, and then you're like, okay, I'm signing this contract for $100,000. Okay, I'm gonna take out this pen. Click.
Click.
You know?
So it's the kind of pen you use to sign away millions of dollars.
Not
or
sign
to get millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about his coins that he's making that has his brand on it? Because I've loved that idea even before I was seeing him do it. Since I watched Pirates of the Caribbean, they had the medallions. I've always wanted to do that, but it's hard to wrestle in my head. I'm like, but who wants to buy like pirate coins or like medallions? And then all of a sudden he comes around and he's doing it with his brand, and it seems like people want them. But what purpose do they serve? Like, they're not jewelry. You don't wear it. It's literally just a collector's item, but it's your brand. So like, is it that valuable that people would be like, yes, this is like so important to me?
Yeah, I guess it's the creator too. I think Peter McKinnon is a little different than normal brands and creators though, because he has his magic involved with his photography, with his brand, his YouTube channel. He has his pirate stuff. It's all kind of encompassed together, and he has this brand that's very unique. It's unique when he started it. I think a lot of people copy it today because of him.
Well, at least his photography and video style.
Yes. That's very unique with him, and people have copied. So it seems not as unique anymore, but I think he was the original creator, or the one who kind of perfected and created something new.
He started the trend. He got very popular, and all of a sudden everybody who's interested in photography or video or didn't know they were interested, they saw his stuff and they're like, I want to do that.
I saw
I want to be cool like him.
A photographer advertised for here in Virginia Beach, and I was like, ooh, a photographer in the area. I clicked on it. I'm like, I like his photos. He's really cool. And he had a picture of him kind of walking away. Someone took a picture of him kind of as a behind shot walking away, and he had a backpack on, and I'm like, wait a minute. I clicked on it. I zoomed in. It was Peter McKinnon's backpack. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah. If you go on and you look at, that's what I've noticed. People you probably know, especially dudes, if they're into photography, they have all of these awesome looking pictures on their profile and it looks really nice. Just take a look and see who they're following. They're following Peter McKinnon. You can bet your butt that they are well, actually cross-reference. Look at their Instagram, look at his Instagram. See how similar they are. See for yourself.
It's kind of funny because one day when I was at school, and we're talking about Lord of the Rings. I don't know why we're talking about Peter McKinnon now, but I was at school and I looked up how to do something editing wise. And I found this creator called Peter McKinnon. He had about 50,000 subscribers at the time, maybe a little bit less.
Okay.
And I'm like, I like this dude. And I started watching his vlogs. I went back. He had long hair on his first videos. And then I just kept watching him. And I told you about him shortly after. And that's when you started watching him. And then he just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And within like 6 months to a year, he had over 1 million. And then he just keeps growing.
Subscribers, not dollars.
Yeah. Well, probably that too.
He probably had $1 million a little bit before he had 1 million subscribers. Yeah, he figured something out. Maybe it was just his style and it caught people's attention, and all of a sudden he's banking on it. But now he's doing something different. Now he's leaning into some pirate stuff. His second brand
which is interesting because
Pete's Pirate Life.
Yeah, we've always had this kind of pirate vibe with us. We don't show it as much in our...
Now now everyone's gonna think we're copying Peter McKinnon.
And we don't show it as much with our like brand. As much, but we've always wanted to. And we kind of had this with like Black Pirates and growing up.
Yeah, there's a deep-seated interest in nostalgia for us and behind pirate branding culture. Things like weaponry, things like medallions, things like ships, things like sailing.
I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about, they're like, I want to protect myself and get a gun. And I'm like, I don't have any guns, but if someone tried to break into my apartment, I'd pull my sword out.
Yeah. There's actually this, well, never mind. I'm not going to talk about it. There's this Instagram that Wyatt shared with me that's really good. It's called Pirate Forge. And they do awesome knives and awesome machetes and awesome big swords. They have rope that's about that thick that they'll tie and hold, and they'll, with one swipe, just with their like machete,
That's awesome.
or they'll throw a piece of paper in the air and they'll slice it through in slow motion. It's really cool. But since we talked about
going back.
Since we talked about branding,
Mm-hmm.
talked about working on stuff that you're passionate about, and getting back to this idea of telling stories like J.R. Tolkien did, took his whole life to tell stories. He branded his life based on this story in many ways. Doesn't matter how many stories he told. When you say J.R. Tolkien, think writing Middle Earth books. You know? That's what you think. And it wasn't even done compared to him. And then you also have other people like, now obviously C.S. Lewis wrote a bunch of books. He's known for a few more things, but a big story for him was Narnia.
Yeah.
He had a number of movies made off of his. Who else? Stephen King. Sadly, I feel like he might be remembered for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but people still know his other work.
They know he does other work. And if they don't read, if you read, you most likely have read a few things of his. I just feel like, okay, and then you get into filmmakers. Peter Jackson. You're going to always remember Peter Jackson did Lord of the Rings.
But he also did King Kong.
He also did, but like, do people really care?
I do.
Do people?
I do.
There's always people out there that care. I'm just saying, do most people really care? No, because he did Lord of the Rings. It overshadows everything. Yeah. What other directors? I know Indiana Jones is popular, but you had
Steven?
No. Indiana Jones, Star Wars, what's his name?
George Lucas.
George Lucas, yes.
Wait. I think I'm drawing a blank right here. George Lucas didn't do Indiana Jones?
Well, let's see. And if he did, it proves my point. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's see.
I think you're getting this mixed up.
Who was the director of Raiders of the Lost Ark? Oh, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Wait. What did George Lucas do? Because I thought he did something with
Star Wars?
No, besides Star Wars, what did he do?
I mean,
he's on the list of Raiders for Lost Ark.
When
he comes up, what did he do?
I don't know. He probably was involved somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe the writing process.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. He was involved, and he's done other things. Let me see what other things he's done besides he was on he worked on all of the Indiana Joneses. Most everything he did was obviously Star Wars. But he's done quite a few things. Quite a few. But then we look back at that and we say he's definitely only Star Wars. That's his thing. And then maybe Steven Spielberg's a mixed bag. But maybe a couple big ones is Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
E.T.
Ooh, Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, my guy.
He's directed Back to the Future. He directed so much stuff. Don't jump on me for not knowing that.
Oh my goodness.
Don't jump on me for not knowing that.
My guy.
Don't say that.
You just don't, because you don't like the films Back to the Future.
You're right, I don't.
What? Do you not remember watching Ready Player One?
Yes, I watched it.
What was his vehicle in that movie? We watched it together.
But it doesn't matter. That was just 80s stuff. It wasn't all of Steven Spielberg's stuff.
Yeah,
did Steven Spielberg do Chucky? Chucky was in that film.
He did.
No, he didn't.
I think so. I'm kidding. No, I don't know. But no, Steven Spielberg was, if he didn't direct it, he was a producer on a lot of
Steven
things.
Spielberg has been a producer and an executive producer, which just means he gave money to things.
Yeah. Do you know
or volunteered.
He was involved in Men in Black.
Yeah, I knew that one. That one. But he's done so much stuff. That's why I'm saying he's a mixed bag. We talk about Steven Spielberg movies, big ones that come to mind, E.T., Jurassic Park, which he might be depressed about because he's done so much stuff. But most people are going to think of those.
Yeah.
Probably. So what I'm saying is, who do you think J.R. Tolkien is the greatest lifelong storyteller that told stories but predominantly told one, had one story to give to the world for them to geek out about as much as possible, for them to love and hold dear.
Of all time?
Of all time, do you think he is the OG?
Well, let me think about it for a couple seconds.
The one and the only who knocked it out of the park with single-handed story telling. Single-handed by meaning dedicated his life to telling one story, which was Middle-earth.
Maybe. I can't think of anybody else.
George Lucas with Star Wars might be a close second, but he's still around.
And
he's not as
sold it.
legendary.
He sold it off.
And he sold it off. Yeah.
My guy. I'm just trying to make a quick buck. My guy.
Maybe I wonder what George Lucas is going to be remembered as once he dies. How are we going to view him? Because we'll probably be around. One of us, if not both of us. Yeah, I wonder what it'll be like. How we will view George Lucas. He made some cheesy prequels.
I got one for us. I don't know his name. The Jeopardy guy. He just died.
Alex Trebek.
What do you think of Alex Trebek for?
I think of him saying
his swimsuit modeling that he did.
He didn't do. Did he really?
I don't know. I'm kidding.
At his young man with his swimsuits showing half of his thigh, but his belly button's covered.
Yeah.
Imagine Alex Trebek.
That would be funny. But yeah, everybody thinks of him as Jeopardy. He dedicated a long time.
He dedicated his life to telling a story of a game show.
The story of the game show.
And also giving fun facts about everything under the sun.
He was such a good guy.
You never watched Jeopardy. Don't act like you were his buddy or something.
I know, but I watched it enough to know, and I would watch it a decent amount. I wasn't a regular viewer, but he was definitely one of those old guys that you just chuckle at.
You know who will never be as great as Alex Trebek? The dude on Wheel of Fortune. What's his name?
Yeah.
What's his name?
I don't know.
Exactly. We don't know.
People know. They're probably screaming at us for it.
But, man. Oh, Alex Trebek is his wife doing okay? Do you know? His wife was in the game show too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the lady who touches the little squares, pretty sure that's his wife.
I think we should go off.
No, I'm thinking about Wheel of Fortune. Yeah.
I think
I'm getting them mixed up.
Totally mixed
yeah,
up.
Jeopardy.
You don't know much about this. You probably should.
Jeopardy just. Oh man, I hate Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, this is like sacrilegious. What you're talking about?
I never watched him. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't say Alex Trebek. He's my buddy. He's such a good
say
guy.
That. I
didn't say he's my guy.
I said he was a good guy.
I just said
not my guy.
Alex Trebek told stories and asked things about fun facts.
Okay, let's get off of this. Let's go back to
you brought it up.
Something. Well, I was just trying to make a point.
Okay. So J.R.R. Tolkien. Do you love him or you hate him?
Probably hate him.
Why? Because he started something great and didn't finish it all the way.
Yeah.
His life wasn't long enough
I don't
to
hate
finish
him.
it.
No, I mean, he created something really good. I love the stories of Lord of the Rings. I mean, I talked about this watching it the other day. I mean, like, it's been a month probably now.
Yeah.
But I watched it, and I always will watch it. Every once in a while, I'll go back and watch the films again. I'll read the books. I'm listening to the book right now, The Hobbit, read by Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
Which is great. Andy Serkis in himself is cool. And he's been brought into that universe.
Yeah. He's Gollum.
I
think overall, I think he's probably the OG. I think he inspires everyone, and no one has been able to reach his level of excellence when it comes to storytelling. Excellence to the point that it becomes boring. Does that make sense? So it's like, remember, you know how you're reading a manual that's really important? Maybe you're reading a book about math. It's like the secrets to the universe, the way the world operates. The universe moves in measurements and distances and operates on this math equation. And it's really important stuff, and it's crazy, and it's super deep, but it's just boring to look at sometimes until you understand how genius it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes his writing was like that. Sometimes he became boring. It was so incredibly intelligent.
Well, no, I think he had a lot of backstory to it, which made it so complex.
Yes, very complex. I'm not saying
but
it wasn't.
He tried to make it simplistic of just a hobbit out sitting on his porch, smoking his tobacco and enjoying the simple things in life.
But there was a lot more than simple things.
Yeah.
He had languages. The thing is, he would break down all this stuff. It would get very detailed, and it would become almost too much to handle mentally sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in Lord of the Rings, but in all these other books as well. That's what I'm saying. I think brilliant. No one's been able to match his level. Be super hard. I think it's a worthy goal, but it's going to be difficult, and I don't know if we'll ever see one again. And with that said, do you want me to tell you what Legless's name means?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wrote it on the piece of paper, but I remember it. So, Legless.
He has no legs.
No. His full name is Legolas Greenleaf.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
The word, and this is funny, because leg, L-E-G, is interpreted as green.
Mm. And
less, or O-less, is interpreted as multiple leaves.
So multiple green leaves?
Multiple leaves. So if you take his first name and his last name as a direct, as they're written and translated, his name is Greenleaf.
It's funny.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Legolas Greenleaf his name is Greenleaf. I laughed when I saw that.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to share it with you guys.
And he also, he grew up in the forest of, why is that? The Dark Forest.
It's on The Hobbit. It's in The Hobbit.
That's bad. We don't know. I know. I just can't think of it right now.
Well, you keep talking. I can't remember. The forest of something.
Forest.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't know, Joshua. Why'd you even bring it up?
Well, that's where he's from. So he's very deep into woods. Yeah.
Yes. Well, he also is a gray elf. Yeah. So very earthy, raised in Middle Earth, not as angelic as the high elves.
But he's still an elf, so he's very angelic.
There are aspects of angelicism to him, but also he gets dirty. He's in a battle. He's grungy. His best friend's a little grungy dwarf.
That's something.
No, let's not get into that.
Okay, I don't want to get into his story. Okay.
What story?
Just where he went at the end of the movie.
No, we can save that for another breakdown. I think over time we should probably, especially in the next year, we should break down almost every character or duo, like Merry and Pippin. We can break them down together through the whole thing. Legolas and Gimli, Aragorn by himself, Gollum by himself.
Okay.
Frodo and Sam.
I hope you're a nerd because you're along for the journey.
We're here to make geeks out of you. And with that said, plug everything.
We're on Spotify. We have a show called Midnight Special with our friend Wyatt and John Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then an occasional guest too. We have another channel called Wise Works Entertainment that we do our short films on. So go watch that. We have Greater Remembering on there. We have one other film, and we're going to put other things on it, but I don't want to plug those until they actually are on there.
Okay, there's Greater Remembering at Wise Works Entertainment YouTube channel. That's what you're talking about, right? Yeah.
Yes. And we also have the podcast. We have, what else do we have? What else should we plug? Subscribe to this channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the main thing.
Yeah.
Subscribe to this channel. Go follow us on Spotify. We really appreciate you're here. We love you. And we hope you had a great Thanksgiving and have a wonderful time Christmas shopping. either online or in person.
Yeah.
Do whatever makes you happy. Be safe. Take your vitamins. Drink a gallon of water.
Mm-hmm.
Subscribe to Olin Rogers. Bye.
Yeah.